Zhuang-What back. Now, after the first video on using wrist weights, can you use wrist weights on Zhang's Wang? Post standing. My lineage calls it something else. But anyway, when you have reached the point where you're in the yin phase, has really advanced, so your legs are open and you're expanding, releasing, and relaxing. So your legs are actually expanding sideways. So as you go down, you feel like there's no weight being pushed into your feet, okay? That opens up the legs. And I've talked about it before that the interior body, the substance of the body is like a sponge. And until you reach a point, it's like a very dry sponge. And being a very dry sponge, if you had an old dry sponge, not a new dry sponge, but an old one, and if you threw it in a sink of water, it bobs, but it doesn't really absorb the water very well. But if you take it and it has enough time and it soaks the water, now it's buoyant with the water and goes with the waves. So it has a buoyancy, and then all those little pores in the sponge open. And when we start Tai Chi Chuan, or whatever it is we are doing, our bodies are like dried out sponges. Eventually, over time, it opens and then it starts filling with a fluid that gets this sponge material wet. And then, as you can see, it naturally raises my arms. I just did not raise my arms. Let me get back so you can see it. My arms actually raised by themselves just thinking about it. So what happens is this: the yang qi bubbles up from the bottom of my feet through these pores, these sponge-like pores in my leg. So as a part of my body is sinking down, like the substance, the yin sinking down and opening the body, the yang qi rises up through the body, both inside and outside the body, and that floats my arms, okay? So what you just saw was my arms floating naturally. I actually did not use my muscles. Now people will go, oh yeah, right. It actually does work. It's really weird. And when it happens to you, you'll be like, whoa, that's strange. See, in my lineage, we don't start here. We start here. Then as we open and we advance, the yang qi floats your arms up as if they're made of wood, or like they're inflatable devices, and they're floating on a rising sea of water around you. And then I completely relax. And if you notice, I'm still wearing the wrist weights that are about 2 pounds, I think 1.5, 2 pounds. My arms floated even though I'm wearing wrist weights, okay? Now, that's when your qi is really advanced, is I can float it even wearing the wrist weights. And that also conditions the yang qi and strengthens it. So you can, at a higher level, use the wrist weights and float the qi, okay? Now this is advanced. Beginners won't be able to do it, and I don't recommend it for beginners, because do not try to use regular post standing wearing wrist weights. It's hard enough for you to keep your arms up. Now, the difference is, in my lineage, we never do anything that causes stress in the body, so we don't start here. Like I said, we start down here. Usually the first position is this, which is a position you also do when you're doing 5 treasure breathing. This is the beginning stance, and you are seeking to relax all the bones and release everything away from the bones. Second position is this position, which is the holding the boulder position. Now when the yang qi begins to bubble up and I let it, it will float my arms up even wearing the wrist weights, because I'm more advanced in this, okay? Now, like I always say, if you've got any shoulder injuries, any elbow injuries, any wrist injuries, any back or neck injuries, always check with your doctor first before you begin any practice. We always have to say that. But once you've reached the point where you can open, and as you open and the sponge gets wet inside your body and expands, then the yang qi can rise up through those pores in the substance of your body, and that will float your arms. Then by having the weights, I still will feel that they're actually, my wrists and my arms are actually floating from the ceiling. They're attached to the ceiling. So I suspend them from the ceiling, and they also feel like they're floating in water. And in our lineage, you only stay long enough if the chi keeps them. If the chi starts draining away for some reason, I let it fall. I never keep my arms up if the chi goes away. So always go with the chi. If the chi flows away, then you let your arms fall. If you can find the feeling again, let the chi rise. Then I let my arms rise with it, and it's as if I didn't do it at all. It actually feels like your arms are made of wood, or they're made of a flotation. You know, they're like rubber inflated, and they float on the water. And if I start losing, if I get too much tension, or if the chi ebbs away, I let them naturally fall. I never keep them up. I don't want any tension in the body. And I always end in this posture, relaxing the bones, because it stretches the shoulders back out. So you want to relax the shoulders and the arms. So this is always our beginning and ending posture. I'm going to do a whole seminar one day on our version of post standing, because it is different than what you see in Yi Chuan or many of the other lineages. Okay, good practice, and it's well worth playing with these. But like I said, always check with your doctor first. If there's ever any pain, stop immediately. Don't go through the pain. Any pain in a joint, stop. Okay? Always be healthy.